Yeah, when we first met, we were totally on the same page with music. We loved all the same music. Like Broken Social Scene for me is like, will always be one of my top 5 bands forever, top albums forever. But before it was like, oh yeah, we had all this music that we liked and identified with, and now I'm like, man, it's too painful to listen to lyrics and old songs. It's like heavy.
Welcome to This Broken Mixtape, the podcast that rewinds and presses play on the soundtrack to your life. I'm Jeff Wu.
And I'm Justin Lee.
They say the third time is a charm. For Toronto art rock duo Lilla Drömland, this proves to be the case. Over the past 8 years, the duo has undergone various iterations, each one signaling a new name and slightly altered sound. But under their new fantastical-inspired name, Breanna, Johnston, and Mark Rendall have ushered in a more confident, dream pop sonic tapestry. We sat down with the duo and the real-life couple to discuss their new material, how moving to rural Ontario has helped expand their creative boundaries, and the challenges of coping with anxiety as a performer.
This week on the show, we have Breanna and Mark from Lilla Drömland. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So right off the bat, just want to give a little bit of context. I had interviewed you guys a couple of times for a book that I wrote about 7 years ago called Our Liner Notes. We talked a little bit about this on the show in previous episodes, but basically I interviewed 14 couples from the Toronto area and really talked to them about their sort of connection through music, making each other mixtapes, favorite shows, favorite bands, this sort of thing, and sort of put it all together as a coffee table book. And you guys were part of that. And so that was like a good 7 years ago. Since then, interviewed you a couple of times. And, I think at the time your band was called Spirit Oak.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's right.
And tell us just right off the bat, this sort of transition, changed your name now officially twice.
Well,
Guilty.
maybe 3 times, because when we started out, I knew you as...
Broken Telephone,
Yeah,
and he was
okay.
Thin Hotel. And
Yeah.
then we got together and made Spirit Oak. And we made Spirit Oak because, I don't know, we were sitting outside that little cafe on the corner of Grace and College that's no longer there, the blue one. I can't remember what it's called. But anyways, yeah, it was just, we were trying to marry like 2 words that we liked, and we liked, oak trees and, I don't know. But basically it was more ethereal and it was pretty folky. But it was just like super in the beginning of our musical journey for sure.
Yeah.
And then we did some like North by Northeast stuff, and then went in to record our album with Ian Blurton. Mm-hmm. And then that's where the Illumina's album came out, the Apollo record that we did. And when we went in with him, it just got louder and louder, and and then it was no longer Spirit Oak, and we were like, we can't call it Spirit Oak. Like, this doesn't feel Spirit Oaky. It feels like this. Yeah, and then we kind of had to grow into the name, and then we're like, now that we have like this awesome group of people that are interested in our music, we were like, do we really want to be calling ourselves this for our whole life if we keep doing music? No. And it's just basically, a substitute name that we never really loved, and we thought it would be temporary, but then, it just kind of got out of control, and now we're kind of backstepping and trying to,
Yeah, no, I think the other part of it is that, like, I had unknowingly been mispronouncing the name this whole time. I would call it, what did I call it? Luminous.
Luminous. And
and it's such a pain to tell people when you actually try to tell people what our name is. Like, nobody knows. Like, when we give it to them, they're like, what is that? What is that? And that's a part of it. It's like, I don't want to, like, make it hard for people. Also, the name in no way tells you what kind of genre it is. Mm-hmm. So that was also a problem. So we hope that the people that like our music don't hate us again for changing our name. But, but it's time.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, a name is is important, but also it's not. I mean, I think it's more about just building I mean, I hate to use the word brand, but essentially that's what you're doing. So changing this name twice, do you guys sort of fear that like earlier fans are going to know who you are, or are you going to have troubles picking up on new fans? Like how does that whole thing work?
That's definitely something we've thought about. And then it's that's what we've been talking about. We thought, well, if we do this, we won't have any of our Spotify followers. We won't have our Facebook followers, because a lot of the time people just don't care enough to like follow you over until you're in a certain bracket. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like, do we keep going at the momentum with this, or do we just start fresh and then whoever wants to like hops on board? And then we decided we felt much better with that. At least we're like, there's a name we want to put on a t-shirt and we're cool with it, versus something that we kind of just don't feel. So I guess that's the trade-off for us, was kind of like, and I also hate when people keep changing their names, and I don't want to, make announcements of name changes when it's like, no one really cares, unless you're doing like crazy stuff all the time. That's really awesome. No one really cares. So it's more like a personal, like you talk about brand. It's like, do I believe in this brand? Do I believe in this? Like, is this aligned with who I am and what I want? No. So that's what it came from, was just like, no. I have like a little website where I put up some of my old music and like zine collages and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like called Tiny Dreamland. And I really like the Lilla Drömland because it's kind of a play off of like the artistic stuff that I like to do, but it's more feminine, it's more honest to what's kind of going on, and it's more vague, and it's just more open. So
yeah, it's also, to me, I hear it, and I also see this, we can be this loud band. You can go solo if you're doing like a solo tour or something. It's also reminiscent of, it can be like a stage name as well. Like, sounds like a name, like Lilla Drömland, So yeah, I really like it. I think it's really versatile.
Just more space to move around in, or like.
And over the years, our musical sound, we've gone through a lot of different phases musically. And I know some bands, it doesn't really matter, like you said, about the name. You can change your style sort of and keep the same name. But I think, really recently we've found our musical identities and like the direction we want to go in. So it sort of feels like we're starting fresh anyway. And so now that we have like clearer ideas of where we want to go, this is like I think it's a really good representation of us now and then us in the future. So
Totally.
And you mentioned that, your sound is a little bit more louder.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Like, what can we expect? Like, are you guys putting out an album soon? I know you mentioned earlier that you are putting out a single soon, but is it going to be a full album?
So the way we've done in the past is like, okay, get together, record 12 songs, put it out. So what we're not doing, which is a part of like just self-care going forward, is we're just gonna be recording a track a month and then releasing it as a single, and then at the end of the year we'll have 12 songs and we'll just compile it, as a release. So we have a couple tracks that we have ready now, part of like a new release. But to kind of bridge the gap from our old record to the new project, we're releasing the Apollo record unplugged under Lilla Drömland name. So just kind of as like apology to everyone who liked that album and that name, but like we're going to just redo everything and go in a different direction. So yeah, we have a new track coming out probably at the end of the month, and it's way more... It's actually pretty similar to the Illumina's Apollo record. It's just loud, lots of fuzz, grimy little garage bass.
Yeah, it's like ethereal slacker rock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at our shows it was more like folky and banjo-y guitars, and then it got louder and louder and more pedals. And
yeah, what we were finding is we were in these like little apartments in Toronto, and we could never make any real noise. We could never turn our amps up. The only times we were turning our amps up were really at shows. And so finally we live outside of Toronto now. We have a bit more space. We can be louder. Actually, part of going into the recording of the Illumina's record Apollo, we went in with Ian and we were in this recording studio. We were just recording layers of feedback. And that was so cathartic.
Yeah.
For us, to go from a folk duo to just to be able to turn those amps up and really be expressive with that feedback was just, it was really liberating. And both of us, I think, wanted to go more in that direction. We just never had I don't think we ever had the space to do it. So that was a really amazing experience, a really good lesson. We learned a lot from that process.
Yeah.
The recording process, song crafting, it was pretty amazing.
And
Agreed.
just living outside of the city now, like different lifestyle. Have you found that that's contributed to like the sound and the kind of music you want to create now?
I have found that because I realize that a lot of my blockages with musicianship and everything just comes from like fear, stage fright, phobias, all these things. And now that I'm like kind of, I guess, in recovery of those things, I'm just kind of playing guitar by myself super loud, and I don't really give a shit, really, like, and I'm really like ripping on the guitar, and I was never able to do that anywhere because there's always the neighbors upstairs screaming or fighting or whatever it happens to be. So like there's this total freedom of just self that I have now that's just kind of like whatever, it doesn't matter. And when you get outside your social circles and all the statusy stuff of like living in a cliquey like city of different things happening, when you get outside of that, you're like, oh, that none of that matters, I'm just gonna do me. And then it's like, oh, like awesome things start happening when you do that. So that's for me like the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, the phobia thing. I know you suffer from anxiety. Tell us a little bit about that, how you've been able to deal with that. I think that's one of the great things about music, whether you're just a fan or actually creating it. Music helps so much. I mean, can't stress that enough.
So my anxiety started probably, I don't even know when, but probably about 10 years ago when I first moved to Toronto, when I actually started realizing like having panic attacks and anxiety. I actually was playing shows, and to play shows, I was taking like a lot of lorazepam to be able to like be on stage and not freak out. But then I just was kind of a zombie and still having a panic attack, even though I was like heavily medicated. But basically, I'd been through like some really traumatic events through, being drugged, and then taken in someone's car, and like there was like a gun involved, and then, driving through a couple tornadoes with my grandpa, and just like a lot of stuff. And then, as a, I don't even know, a 19-year-old or 18-year-old dealing with all of that out because my parents live really far away. And then just getting tons of panic and anxiety that I didn't really understand was like post-trauma, kind of like snowballing on itself. So with music, it kind of got worse and worse over the years, and got to the point where my stage fright was just like out of control. And that's one of the reasons we stopped playing live shows for a while too, because my panic attacks would get so bad that I couldn't even, like, if there was feedback happening on an amp, I would just kind of shut down and just kind of implode, and then be totally shaking, trembling, trying to figure stuff out, and then like start singing, and then maybe by like the third or fourth song I'd actually have my voice and it wouldn't be trembling and it wouldn't be, super terrible, and it was absolutely horrible. But it's just kind of over time. Now, only this year have I really kind of been like, okay, I have all these things going on, and now I'm kind of like, okay, these are what I need to like overcome my anxiety to be able to perform. Because when you have agoraphobia, which is you don't want to go in public, you're afraid of like running into people, being in areas with people, not being able to handle like social interactions. And then you're performing, that's literally the opposite of what you want to be doing. But then it's kind of like that internal struggle of, I'd rather, like, this is what I'd love to be doing. If I could just do it behind a curtain with no one there, that would be great. So that's not a reality. So I've been really working on trying to figure out a way for me to overcome all these anxieties. And, I look at people like Maylee Todd, like you look at what she's doing, and she's like, honestly, one of my biggest inspirations. I have like 6 CDs in my car, and one of them is like Acts of Love. And it's just amazing. I just look at people like that, and I'm like, yeah, like, there's something so pure about what she's doing. Obviously, she's super true to herself. She's not following the main line, and it's just kind of like, yeah, you can be authentic to yourself and perform and just be honest about who you are in a way that's not, just not having to compromise yourself. So, yeah, it's just been a process. I don't know if anything I said made sense, but yeah, it's just been a super intense process for me, like overcoming my anxiety, but it's still here.
Mm-hmm. I think that some people are just sort of, misinformed, and, they don't quite understand it. Maybe because there's not enough education out there, but particularly when somebody who's a performer, a musician, has, you want to call it stage fright or anxiety. And I think when Sia revealed that, her whole purpose of why she disguises her face, and I mean, a lot of people I think
Totally.
were like, oh, like that's a thing? Like, is this a gimmick? I mean, what do you think needs to be done in order for for that message to get out there? Is it just more people kind of coming out and talking about these issues, or?
Yeah, I think it is more talking about it. And I also think, we just have a serious problem, myself included, with judgment, right? We're so hypercritical of every single thing that happens. And so the same criticalness that we place on other people, we also expect that's going to come back on us, right? It's like this fear of judgment, a fear of, everything. So it's just fear. And I think the more that you talk about it and the more that you kind of, for me, it's been saying, like to different band members in the past, or if I have anxiety, it's like, hey, like this is what I need to be okay for us to like do this successfully. And then if they respect those boundaries and what has to happen, then it can be a really great thing. But when you can't talk about it or you don't feel safe to talk about it with people, it'll just implode. So I think the more people who talk about anxiety and like just getting educated on how you can help people with anxiety or different, any mental illnesses or anything really, it does, I think, decrease the pressure on people, like the expectations and kind of the pressure to be okay when you're not. I had this breakthrough last year when I had a piano recital, and I had that same stage fright. In that moment, I was like, okay, calm down, like do your deep breathing, like take your 10 seconds, whatever. And then at a certain point, I was like, oh, no, like this isn't going away, so I'm going to have to play in a full panic attack. Okay, get used to it. And then just kind of like settling into the panic attack and then just playing anyways and being like, okay, so sometimes I can't control this. And like, so it's just kind of like this let go thing. But I know it's been really hard on him because he's dealing with someone like with high anxiety. He also gets high anxiety as well.
I've stopped drinking coffee.
Yeah. And so it's like, you have to really strive to communicate because it just kind of like fear loses its power when everyone's just aware of what's happening, right? And when you feel supported, it just kind of starts to dissipate. So for me, I think it's just like expressing myself, telling everyone what I need, and then communication, I think, is like the biggest thing. And just, compassion for yourself and compassion for other people. Like compassion is where the only change that can happen. You have to be compassionate for yourself or you're just going to be screwed, really.
Let's rewind a little bit and talk about how you guys first met. I mean, I found your story really interesting. Like I said, the book featured 14 couples, and you guys were like by far like my favorite.
Thank you.
Not that like all the other ones are terrible, but like
no, we just had weird stories.
Yeah, we were super
talk
weird.
a little bit about that if you could.
Well, we met through our mutual friend, very good friend Patrick. Me and Patrick had been making music at my apartment, and kind of making music. Like he'd been teaching me about, I guess, like Indian violin and like different music that I'd never heard of. He has a really amazing collection. And one day, I guess he had met you separately.
He was helping us fix a baby carousel for my friend at a cafe. He was helping us unwind this like carousel, like mobile for a baby. And then he was like, let me take that. And then we just walked home, and we had lived in the same house on the same street. And then he introduced us.
He introduced us. Yeah. We started playing music together. At that point, you were...
When I met Mark, I went to the doctor and had like all these things happening. And the doctor was like, oh, take this. We're going to get you a lung CT. Like, don't worry about it. I was like, okay. And I was stupid at the time because I just took whatever he gave me. I was basically on tons of medication that was like Paxil and lorazepam. And like, I wasn't no time told that this was like medication for the mind at all. I was told like, oh, take this, don't worry about your lungs, your asthma will be fine. And I basically was a zombie when I met Mark, and we just basically watched.
Was it Pat that convinced you to?
Yeah, Pat was like, what are you taking? I was like, I don't know. Drool. And then he was like, you should get off this. And I was like, whoa, you're right. And so when we met, we were just watching X-Files and eating like bags. We just ate all dressed chips all days and just watched like every season of X-Files until we started dating. Basically.
Pretty much. It was a very insulated environment. It was really fun.
Yeah, we just played tons and tons of music and lots of Leonard Cohen and just it's really awesome
timbre.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, you guys seem like, definitely, other than being musicians, like true like fans of music. And you definitely have your own individual taste, but there's a lot of overlapping tastes there. Talk a little bit about that, if you could, and individually, what do you listen to? And
I think when we first met, we bonded over Broken Social Scene, Coco Rosie. I mean, I was super into Cat Power. Leonard
Yeah.
Cohen, we
Yeah.
both loved. You were really into Neil Young. You still are.
Oh, yeah, forever.
Forever Neil Young.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, I think, yeah, when we first met, we were totally on the same page with music. We loved all the same music. Like Broken Social Scene for me is like, will always be one of my top 5 bands forever, top albums forever. Coco Rosie, like huge place in my heart forever. But it's funny, I don't really listen to, we actually have totally kind of forked off in different arenas of what we listen to. Like I listen in my car to like, just Guided by Voices every day and Melee Todd. That's like the only thing I listen to anymore. And then like he'll listen to like ambient stuff. But before it was like, oh yeah, we had all this music that we liked and identified with. And now I'm like, man, it's too painful to listen to lyrics and old songs. It's like heavy.
I'm all into instrumental music right now. Brian Eno and, shakuhachi music or like traditional classical music from all over the world. And, just when I was going back over songs, that I might have listened to when I was younger, it just brings up too many memories associated with it. And like almost, I don't know, it's like, it's just spirals me into this weird.
It's like a gut blow. You just get like punched in the gut.
It's like too nostalgic for me.
Like, tell me specifically, I mean, you were mentioning like music with lyrics, too painful to listen to. What name a song if you could?
I was like a moody teenager. I was probably emo before that term came out. And, basically all of Sean Marshall's stuff, like Cat Power stuff, is just
untouchable.
Heavy.
Yeah,
heavy. I listened
sure.
to Elliott Smith, Cat Power, like Ziggy Rose, and I go back and, I listen to that. Some of those lyrics, like Moonpix is probably one of my favorite albums. It still is, but I can't listen to it because it's just so fucking painful. And I saw her live and I idolized her, and I went to see her live, and she's amazing, but she's like comes out on stage and she's like this. She just is like this wild animal. She seems like a total wreck, and yet this voice comes out of her, and I had this weird conflict where I was watching her, and I kind of felt like, oh man, like you're so amazingly talented, but there's so much pain and shit that you've obviously been through, and I don't know. I when I listen back to that really heavy, emotional, depressing music, it still affects me like really, really strongly. And maybe that's something I need to reinvent or figure out a way to reinvent memories around it, but it's really heavy.
Yeah. And for me, I don't know if it's as like the heaviness of music or more just, a lot of anxiety is overthinking. And for me, when I, even like I love Broken Social Scene, but even when I listen to, Almost Crimes or Cause Equals Time, I'm just kind of like taken back to like walking on the sidewalk, being super young and naive and like experiencing whatever I'm experiencing, and just kind of takes you back, and it's kind of like a cringe. You like cringe at the person you used to be, and I'm like, I can't. But then, so it's just, I definitely struggle with, I don't know, I think I might be strange in this, but I'm not an albums kind of person. I'm like my friend gave me this and I'll listen to this and I'll listen to it till it's dead. Like I said, Guided by Voices, like if I feel like it's gonna melt. Like I once had this DVD from a band and it actually stopped working because I just kept watching it. I kind of obsess over one thing and I listen to it till I can't listen to it and then I move on. But it's hard for me to listen back because I obsess over it. It becomes like that year for me, and then I go back. I'm like, oh God, too real, too soon. I can't. So.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I certainly understand like why it's too painful to listen to those things. But for me, I don't know. I think like, especially when I'm at home, like 80% of the music I listen to is just like Sad Bastard, like really, really depressing. And I love that stuff. I mean, maybe it just doesn't affect me in the same way as it affects other people.
Or maybe it's cathartic for you to feel that.
So, yeah. I don't know. I love that feeling.
I don't know. I go on.
There's like a familiarity, which is nice. But then I think it's interesting that you're both, like everything is feels like autobiographical for you, and you both kind of channel that, which is amazing for you to create too. Like you're so deeply impacted by everything you listen to.
Yeah, we're too sensitive.
Maybe.
No, I mean, I don't know. It makes total sense to me. I could see how that would be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I hope that eventually I, heal through that and don't have to,
Maybe if we listened to more music, like just tons, we wouldn't attach to any one feeling on a song. We just it would just keep moving, and that's the problem. We just, you know what I mean? Like, we just gotta get some new playlists going, maybe.
I know. All I listen to is Brian,
Yeah.
Does other forms of art have the same effect on you guys? Like, let's say if you see a film that you've seen so many times and it's very much, attached to specific memories, does that affect you in the same way as music would?
For me, absolutely. I actually have stopped watching movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually don't really watch movies, which frustrates him because he loves watching movies, but I've stopped watching movies because I find, other people with really bad panic attacks might be able to relate to this, but sometimes I just watch terrible, terrible garbage TV, garbage movies, because I'm just like, anything can make me cry, and it's just too much. And I find like, even when we watched The Arrival, and that was like one of the last movies that I watched that was like an intense movie, and I was just like, oh my God, it's so intense.
It's a very compact journey as opposed to long format television series, which are
and film is so moving, it's so beautiful and amazing that it's just like just incredible. Like, yeah,
we gotta learn how to embrace
we
the
need
too
to learn
much
how
beauty.
To deal with feelings.
We need to get some good, we need to rewire, get some new filters or something so we can handle it.
But I like watching like old movies, or like Mighty Boosh, like weird random stuff, or mystical sci-fi stuff. I love that. I could watch that forever. But anything that's like dramatic or like intense or emotional, I'm just like, God, the world's going to hell.
The Arrival was super intense.
It was okay. Okay.
So good.
Yeah. Okay.
That director is actually slated to make a remake Dune, like 2 of them.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. So he's doing that. It's going to be incredible.
That's so great.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Wow.
We need some spice.
Well, that must also be like kind of a conflict because Mark, you're an actor.
Yeah, like right? I should be watching more, Actually, I should probably watch more TV than I do. I don't like watching TV. I know this is like walking paradoxes here, but I love watching old movies. I like that sort of shorter format. I feel guilty about watching TV. It just like I feel like it wastes so much of my time and mental energy, and I get so emotionally involved with the characters and stuff when I'm like, damn it, I could be practicing guitar, or like, when really I should see it as,
I think that's a generational thing right now. Like the Netflix binge TV is a new thing. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think we all struggle with
not enough talked
the
about
boundaries
addiction
of television watching.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm really shit at self-imposing disciplining myself to say, okay, I'm going to like watch TV for an hour, and then I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to do scales, and I'm going to, practice this instrument or record this song. I'm terrible at that. So I'm kind of all or nothing. So I just end up, and to be honest, in the film industry, music has sort of been the balancing thing that keeps me sort of sane, because, anyone who's an actor knows that when you're not acting, it's like when you're not on a job, you've got these long periods of time where you're not working, or you have to have something to keep you sane. Mm-hmm. And so music has been that.
And then also really, like the next week you could be gone for 6 months.
Oh yeah. It's really up and down. So music has been this consistent thing that's kept me sort of grounded. Mm-hmm. And so I'll go to music quicker than I'll go to film, because like I work film. So music is like this sacred thing that I try to nurture on this, like when I have free time.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've been acting for a while. I mean, your credits date all the way back to you started as a child actor, yes?
Yeah. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. Yeah.
Wow. I wanted to bring up one credit specifically, The Neverending Story. You did the television adaptation.
Yeah. When I was 12, I think, played Bastion. And yeah, that
what was that experience like?
It was amazing. As you know, I'm a total fantasy geek and sci-fi geek, so it was like I was able to pretend like I was in that world, and there's really great set deck and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really fun.
And you took home a souvenir from the set.
Yeah, my mom has it on the Christmas tree every year. It's the what do you call it? The Ouroboros.
Yeah.
And it's the snake eating its own tail, that little medallion or not medallion. I guess it is a medallion.
I would, if that were me, I would just put that on a chain and wear it everywhere.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Conversation starter. Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. I've had a lot of great experiences in that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then another credit, and I probably am not supposed to mention this, but you voiced Arthur.
Oh yeah, I did like 3 seasons of that.
That'll fit.
Yep.
I'm curious, Breanna, did you ever watch The Neverending story TV show or author before you had even met
Okay,
Mark?
so this is what's awesomely funny, but I had a younger brother, and I watched Arthur every single day after school, every single day, literally, like we'd get off the bus and go watch Arthur. And when I met Mark, I didn't know he was the voice of Arthur. So it was really funny. Afterwards, I was like, that's kind of weird.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it was also weird because one time we were at this concert, and I have these photos of us like at the Mod Club dancing on stage.
So
and then
before
I'm like,
we knew
before
each
we knew
other.
each other, and we were on stage dancing beside each other in this photograph, but we hadn't met yet. So it was like, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and I had
That's
heard
awesome.
her voice. My friend Ryan had a mix CD that her and her friend had given him at it was an island music festival
yeah.
or something. And so I had heard her voice in this like original band that she was in. Let it be unnamed. But yeah, I thought, wow, when I heard it, I was like, wow, this chick's amazing. Like, she's so good. It's like really old Coco Rosie, or like really, because it was like crappy MP3 recording quality or 4-track recording quality, and her voice. And, like when you listen back to it, like you're
Like
so
a baby.
young, like a chipmunk baby.
Like a chipmunk baby.
Yeah.
For sure.
But like a pain-filled, soul-filled Dust Bowl, like, I don't know, Depression era folk singer. It was, I don't know. And so I had heard her stuff before even consciously, knowing it when I met her. And we only connected these dots after we had met. And,
How long after you guys met? Like when you were dating and everything already?
yeah, I think this was maybe within the first year.
Yeah, first year for sure.
We
yeah.
figured
That's
out,
crazy.
started making these connections.
Yeah, it was crazy because it's just random weird stuff that you're like, oh, whoa, cool. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually it's something where, oh yeah, I was there too, right? It's
Right.
like, yeah, I was there, but to have documented
Yeah,
evidence.
photograph.
of that.
And just
crazy.
also the, blatantly not really. I mean, we were dancing right next to each other, and I had no recollection of her being there. She had no recollection of me being there.
No.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
You mentioned mix CD earlier. That's obviously like one of the topics of this podcast. Have you guys made like mix CDs or playlists for each other?
Yeah, more so in the past. I mean, we live together. We spent so much time together.
Yeah.
It's rare that we are apart enough that we make mix CDs for each other anymore. But
I did make you a mix CD when we first met.
yeah. And that's since been, was it? You introduced me to Mason and Jennings,
Yeah.
and Bone Clouds is like one of my. I love that album now, and Jans Lekman.
Yeah. Yeah, Jens Lekman.
And who else was on that?
I don't even remember. Probably just.
Animal Collective,
Of course, yeah.
maybe some Bob Dylan.
I'm sure, yeah, and Fleet Foxes.
Fleet
the
Foxes, yeah.
typical 2000 whatever playlist at the time.
I wouldn't call
But,
that typical. I mean,
yeah.
that sounds like a great playlist.
It was a good
Yeah.
playlist.
yeah.
Mind you, I didn't listen to it for a
No,
long
he
time.
didn't listen to it for a long time. I was like, oh, I made you this. He's just like, oh, cool, yeah. And then he just like never listened to it. I'm like,
I did eventually listen to it.
you suck.
I was pretty shitty.
One of the greatest crimes. Somebody makes you a
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm never gonna live it down either.
So then how did you finally get around to it? You were just, I should probably do
I
this
think
now?
I was like, did you even listen to that yet? And he's like, no. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. So
And then he's like,
I
okay,
did.
I'll listen to it. I was like, all
It's
right.
really good. It is really good. It was very thoughtful. I'm a jerk.
So let's get back to Lilla Drömland. So you're planning to release a single each month.
Yeah.
And I think this is like becoming, I wouldn't even say a trend, but like I know that the Ravenettes did this. MF Doom did this last year. I think it's a great idea, and it doesn't like sort of put too much pressure on record 12 tracks right away and get it out. But,
Yeah, because I have a backlog of like 50 songs that I have on my computer of just like, oh, that doesn't really fit on that album. No, that doesn't really. It's like, no, like just let it go because it's not going to be any more relevant in the future than it is now. So that's kind of my approach to it. And it's also Spotify's changing the way we listen to music, and it's a single world because of the playlisting and all that stuff. And I just kind of want to be more free. And again, like I said, that self-care of like that slow release instead of so much pressure and so much money when you go to release an album. I mean, we've been in school for the past couple of years for like music production, music supervision, artist management. He's been doing, soundtracks and composing. And so now we have a better ability to produce our own music. So we're going to totally take full advantage of that and then just kind of start releasing stuff and just like open up the tap because there's definitely a backlog of stuff that I'd love to share.
Bree's pretty prolific, in her songwriting. And, sometimes it's the song is like 75% done or like 30% done. But I love even going back on these recordings, you know, I love your process of lyric writing, because she goes on this like stream of consciousness, amazing subconscious journey when she's making these songs, and then goes back afterwards and sort of transcribes them. To me, it's this sort of magical process, because I've always struggled with writing lyrics. You know, I'm better at writing melodies, but like you're really just a phenomenal lyric writer,
Thanks.
I think, and poet, you know.
Thanks.
And so there's this, she has this massive backlog of just material. And so she's like sifting through it, and it's really great to be able to focus on, with regards to singles, it's really great to be able to focus on one of those things and just say, yeah, I want to work on this song this month.
And finish it and just let it
finish
go.
release it, send it out into the world and move on.
And then
you know?
I also feel like that helps to build a stronger relationship with the musical community, because for me, I've went to different shows where I've seen, you know, people that I admire play live, and then there's a huge disconnect from the music and the people that show up at the shows.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that like kind of kills me and also makes me not want to make music. So for me to like release one single, I feel like maybe it can allow me to, you know, post more often and then interact more with the people who listen to your music, because that's a part of making music. And I just feel like the community is like a big part of that. And there's a lot of commercial music where that doesn't happen, but I feel like that's what music's about, storytelling and community. So yeah, and I struggle in the real world, but like I've always had huge friendships online in MySpace with other musicians. Like I still have friends from MySpace that I met, like collaborating tracks. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's so important to just include people and like be a part of something, or else you're just servicing your ego. I don't know. But yeah, so.
And are you guys working with other producers, or are you producing it yourselves?
No, we're producing ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, we've thought about taking some other stuff and maybe, you know, working with Ian again or working with someone else again. But for this specific project, no, it's definitely just going to be us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then how about in terms of touring and live shows?
So that's what we're hoping to do in this fall. So we're hoping that, because I'm working on a music video right now for the song that's coming out at the end of the month. And then we're hoping that we can start going again in the fall, just like playing a couple small shows in the city, and then in next spring actually going on like a bigger tour. So that's what the projection is thus far.
Well, we're looking forward to that. And, you know, do you guys have a new website, or is it?
Yeah, I have a brand new Facebook page. And no, I just opened up a Facebook page like the other day. So it's going to be a slow burn and up until the end of the month. And then, when this comes out, I'll probably be telling people on Facebook as well that we're switching over, and that's when I'll like open the website up. Okay. But yeah, I like it because we're not in a rush.
Mm-hmm.
Just
you can take your time with
that. Yeah. But it's going to be loud-ish.
How can you say that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to put the single on your Spotify playlist for this. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, and
It's a
thank you
pleasure.
for all your support over the years.
You've been listening to episode 35 of This Broken Mixtape featuring art rock duo Lilla Drömland. If you'd like to hear more, check out thisbrokenmixtape.com to listen to this episode's Spotify playlist and all of our past interviews. Also, if you would be so kind, share and rate our podcast, which currently can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Come back next week where our special guest is stand-up comedian, singer-songwriter, TV host, and chef, Big Norm. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it, and come back to check us out again next week. Cheers.